Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tariq King. I will be our moderator. Just letting you guys know that we will be starting this event at promptly at 2 p.m. So that's in about 8 minutes. So thank you for waiting and thank you for coming. Good afternoon again, everyone. We will be starting shortly. However, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties and we will be resuming shortly. Going live in 3. Good afternoon again. Due to unforeseen significant technical issues, we have to reset this event. So the National Spatial Data Branch significantly and genuinely apologizes for any inconveniences caused, but we will be sending out a new link. We kindly ask that you join on the new link so that we can then proceed to have a technical seminar. Again, apologies, and we hope that you rejoin again on the new link. Thank you very much. open us with a word in prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Not hearing you, Ranford.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, hearing you now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for this day. Today, as we commemorate the GIS Technical Seminar, we thank you for all our presenters. Lord, as we continue with this Geography Awareness Week, Lord, we ask that the technology will be advanced and aid us to make better decisions. We pray, oh God, that everything will be according to your will. This we pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
So apparently I was just muted for the whole thing. But like I said, we have a great program planned for you guys with presenters ranging from public health to urban development and urban planning to academia and from uh, imaging, spatial imaging and analysis as well. So from T-Carta Caribe, UTech, UDC, and Ministry of Health and Wellness, we have a lot of GIS expertise over spanning much longer than I have been around that you guys will be able to learn from and hopefully glean from. So we're going to move on to the opening remarks from Miss Simone Lloyd, who is our principal director. And because I have been a rude host and not introduced myself, I will rectify that now. My name is Tariq King. I am the Senior Spatial Data Analyst here at the National Spatial Data Management Branch, and I will be your moderator for the rest of the program.
Thank you for that, Tariq. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for the 9th GIS Technical Seminar. So this is the 9th year in which, as a community, a local geospatial community in Jamaica, that we're hosting a technical seminar that focuses on the use of geospatial technologies to address a particular area. And this year, for our Geography Awareness Week and GIS Day activities, we're focusing on how it is that these technologies can navigate the new normal. And so we're happy that we have an agenda that is packed with experts from various eras who will be sharing whatever it is that they have been doing in their own field of study. And so, with that, as it says, it's a technical seminar. And because it's a technical seminar, we know that and we hope that the presenters will be speaking to you and using a lot of technical terms. And with that, many of which I'm sure you'll be familiar with, and we should be learning something soon. And so we're happy that the presenters took time out to develop the presentation, to be here with us, and deliver these presentations that will help expose us to the work that they're doing, but also what they're doing using geospatial technology is very here. And so we're very thankful that you, as that we are here with us, that you can stay with us despite the technical challenges and that you're here. So looking forward to listening to all the presentations from the presenters as we go through the next hour and odd. So thank you so much for being with us, and I look forward to all that you share with us. Thank you. And then back over to Tarek.
All right. Thank you, Simone. So we are going to be jumping right into it. So we're going to be returning to our normal running order. Since our presenters are here, we'll be returning to our normal running order. So we will be starting out with Miss Trecia Williams, who is a lecturer at the University of Technology, Jamaica. So Ms. Trecia Williams is a lecturer at the University of Technology, Jamaica in the Land Surveying and Geographic Information Sciences Division. She's a student surveyor at Johnson Wiggins and Associates Limited and an associate member of the Land Surveyors Association of Jamaica. Trecia Williams has earned an international master's degree in geomatics, specializing in surveying, with distinction from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University in 2018. She was the 2017-2018 Faculty of Construction and Environment Scholar at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. Prior to studying in Hong Kong, Ms. Williams received her bachelor's in surveying and geographic information sciences from the University of Technology, Jamaica in 2015 with first-class honors. She's a published researcher and conference presenter in areas that interest her, such as land survey, land tenure and management, and applications of remote sensing and GIS in the built environment. So without further ado, we will be handing over to Ms. Trecia Williams to make her presentation. So, Ms. Williams, please remember to make your presentation full screen and we'll send you live. And also, please remember to turn on. You may go ahead, Ms. Williams. Ms. Williams, we can't hear you.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, Ms. Williams, we can hear you. Turn on the camera as well.
Okay.
And make your presentation full screen.
Are you able to see me now?
No. Yes, we can. All right.
Okay.
So feel free to go ahead.
And it's now full screen, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, finally. All right, good afternoon, everyone. As Tariq said, I am Trecia Williams, and I will be making my presentation on how I mapped urban slum settlements using very high resolution imagery and land boundary data. Okay, so the United Nations expects that slum settlements will actually grow to about 2 billion by 2050. And what you find is that the slum settlements, especially in our developing countries, they suffer from deteriorating physical, economic, and social living conditions. This is because, of course, the unplanned and unmanaged urban growth that you experience as urbanization progresses. So, of course, urbanization comes with the pros such as healthcare, good healthcare, your major roads and so forth. But because of the unplanned and unmanaged growth, then there are certain negative sides of it. And so there are certain plans and policies that needs to take place so that we can actually alleviate this problem. And there has been numerous research, numerous literature that states that there needs to be comprehensive mapping of slum settlements so that we can solve this issue. Of course, there are traditional means where persons have used census data. They have gone into the communities to gain an idea of the socio-economic aspects of these communities. But with census data, the span between collecting census, for example, for our developing countries can be as much as 10 years. For the participatory approaches, such as the ones that the squatter management unit uses, where they go into the communities to gain, again, to pinpoint the locations of these slum settlements, to understand the socioeconomic conditions, what you find is that this is costly. It's time consuming, of course, and of course you have to consider safety. So remote sensing as humans would interpret what a slum settlement is if we should look at an image. As you can see, the buildings are larger for non-slum settlements compared to slum settlements where the buildings are appear smaller in the images. You'll find that the buildings for non-slum settlements, they are further away from gullies compared to, which is the opposite for slum settlements. The roof of the buildings for your slum settlements are of varying materials. So for example, the slum settlement roofs, you will have, for example, zinc, and they're rusting, so they would appear different on the image compared to our non-slum settlements where the roofs are more homogeneous, as you can see on the images. Additionally, the layout of the buildings, they are more haphazard in your slum settlements. In our non-slum settlements, they're more orderly. You will have patchy vegetation in your non-slum settlements. So as humans, we can interpret this when we look at an image, but how do we actually tell a software to do this without any manual intervention? We want the software to be able to do this automatically. And so it becomes, of course, less time consuming, and we can use this over a larger area. And then, of course, we've solved the security factor. So this study was conducted in Jamaica in the Kingston metropolitan area, and as is the case for many developing countries, what you find is that there's limited information about slum settlements. There's mostly textual data or pictorial data, and for Jamaica there is point location of the slum settlements. But it's a slum settlement, it's a settlement, so it needs to be an aerial spatial data. So what was done, or what is the objective of the research, is to gather context of the slum settlements here in Jamaica. So yes, other countries or other research has been conducted where they map slum settlements, but you need that local context, because what you find is that slum settlements are unique to a particular country, particular cities, right? So I developed a local context of slum settlements so that I can develop parameters to map the slum settlements, and also to delineate or mark out the exact boundaries of these slum settlements so I can separate them from non-slum settlements. And then I want to finalize or leave you guys with an idea as to how this information can assist with slum mapping and slum management and slum upgrading. So the site, I used 3 sites in Kingston metropolitan area. They're about 3 kilometers square each. And the methodology that I employed was I used high resolution images, and I segment those images, meaning I cut them up really. In layman terms, I cut up those images into objects. So at varying scales, so at various levels. So for example, just to go through it quickly, at level 1, I had vegetation and shadow because there was some shadow in the images that I acquired, so I had to separate those. Then at another scale, which is a larger scale, you had buildings. And then at a larger scale, we had to separate commercial buildings and industrial buildings from your dwellings, your private dwellings. And of course, that's at a larger scale. So going back to the methodology, so after segmenting the image into objects, I applied what I call object-based image analysis. So then I had to classify that image, basically telling the software, okay, this is a building, this is the roadway, this is the gully, and so forth. Classifying the image, have my building, my private dwellings, vegetation, and so forth. But then I needed to create homogeneous neighborhoods. So there has been many studies that talks about the spectral and textural properties of images to separate slum areas from non-slum areas. So I use those properties to join parcels together that had similar spectral and textural properties so that I can create what I call homogeneous neighborhoods. So basically, if a parcel A and parcel B are beside each other and they have similar spectral and textural properties, they would join together to create homogeneous neighborhoods. And based on the properties of this, those neighborhoods can either be a slum neighborhood or a non-slum neighborhood. And as you can see here, those parcels are being joined. So we had it like this, and those parcels are being joined together to create slum neighborhoods or non-slum neighborhoods. The thing is, the software itself cannot differentiate that as yet. And so the next step in our methodology was to actually create what we call image features to basically tell the software what is a slum neighborhood and what is a non-slum neighborhood. So those image features was created based on how we as humans would look on an image and differentiate a slum neighborhood from a non-slum neighborhood. So quickly, because of time again, when we look at those neighborhoods, we can see, oh, in the slum neighborhoods, there's a lot of buildings, right? So the density would be greater. So I created an image feature to say at a specific threshold, if within that specific neighborhood, if the density of my buildings is surpassing that threshold, then it's a slum neighborhood. If it's below this specific threshold, then it's a non-slum neighborhood. And so I created multiple image features to put into the software to differentiate slum and non-slum neighborhoods. So in doing that, I then used a classifier. I used supervised classification, and I said, okay, this is me now training the software, saying this is what a slum neighborhood looks like. So I used the field survey point data that I got from this quarter management unit some time ago, and I basically created slum neighborhoods. I told the software, this is what a slum neighborhood looks like. And then I want you to go ahead, since I've trained you, I want you to go ahead and differentiate slum and non-slum neighborhoods in my entire image. All right, so I tell the software, this is what a slum neighborhood, these are the characteristics of slum neighborhoods, these are the characteristics of non-slum neighborhoods. And then since I've trained you now, I want you to apply this automatically to other images. So initially I got an 82% accuracy, as you can see here, where I used all those different contexts of what a slum neighborhood is different from a non-slum neighborhood. And after applying that 82% accuracy, then what I realized after doing this is that I had some, as you can see, some misclassifications. But the idea is a slum neighborhood has to be beside another non-slum a slum neighborhood has to be beside another slum neighborhood, right? So therefore, I applied a post-classifier rule set that says if a slum neighborhood of a particular size is not beside another slum neighborhood of a particular size, then it has to be a non-slum neighborhood, and I got my accuracy increased to 98%, right? And what you realize is that using these various context of what a slum neighborhood slum is for Jamaica, I was able to achieve this accuracy compared to other research that only uses the spectral properties of images or just use general context features. So I was getting 65%, 75% accuracy compared to the 82 to 98% accuracy that I got in mapping the slum settlements. So after mapping the settlements, the output, of course, is the parameters. So now I have a model so that I can apply it to other areas, because now I have to test this in other areas. So I transferred my model that I used to other sites. So site 2 and site 3 in the Kingston metropolitan area, and I got an 83% and an 85% for sites 2 and 3 respectively. So therefore, this is now saying that this model that I've created to map some settlements, it's possible to transfer it to other areas. And the model that I've created here, the text and spectral properties of the images, the layout of buildings, the building roof characteristics, the distance the slums are from gullies are very important features to map slum settlements, where I am getting an over 80% accuracy. So, as I said, I want to leave you with, how is this useful? Why do we need this? How can this help in our attempts to create policy, to map slum settlements, to manage slum settlements, and eventually upgrade slum settlements? Of course, slum statistics. From what I've created in terms of the slum map, I joined each of those homogeneous neighborhoods that are beside each other to create slum settlements now. So for example, site 1, I have 10 slum settlements that are in site 1. Now, what if instead of saying site 1, it was actually some administrative boundaries? For example, I could say there are 10 slum settlements in a particular community. They're occupying this amount of land, right? There is this amount of buildings and so forth. Now I have statistics that can aid in development. Also, the fact that I use land parcel data to create the boundaries, I now have the exact boundaries that are affected, legal boundaries that are affected by my slum settlements. So I now know whether those lands are registered or not, the value of those lands, because when you have to consider upgrading, you have to talk about the value of the land, if you need to buy it from someone or whatever the case might be, right? And so you have all those information explicitly determined right away. Also, you have information as to the registration status of the land. You know the owners. Is it government owned? Is it privately owned? All that information is there, and all that information can be stored in a slum
Okay, she's
information. If you should extend it to the Kingston metropolitan information is
Trecia, we seem to have lost you for a bit. Could you sidetrack or backtrack just a little bit? We seem to have lost you.
other urban
Are you able to hear us, Tricia?
Yes, you're hearing me?
Yes, we kind of lost you for a bit there. So would you mind stepping back just a bit? The last we had heard was the valuation of the lands.
Are you hearing me, Tariq?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you now. When you fell off, we heard you were discussing the land value. In order to upgrade, you have to talk about the development of the land and the value of the land before you can move forward, but we lost you after that. You're there, Tricia, right? Hello. We seem to have lost. We seem to have lost. We seem to have lost connection with Miss Williams, unfortunately. So she will be back on in a bit. However, please feel free to post your questions in the chat because we have very much. I personally have a few questions, so we can have Miss Williams answer some questions for when she returns if she's able to present. But until then, we may have to actually move on to the next presenter in the program. Unless, wait, Miss Williams, are you back? Oh, I guess she's still gone. Okay. In the meantime, we will be introducing the next presentation. The next presentation that we have is from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So let me put this up. So the next presentation is from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and they're Dr. Danique Hayden and Mr. Hector Burrowes. So Dr. Danique Hayden is a medical officer in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and Mr. Hector Burrowes is the GIS officer in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. They will be presenting on the topic ArcGIS tools in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, challenges and proposed solution. So, for a little bit more information about our speakers, Dr. Hayden is a medical doctor known for her work in health geoinformatics during the COVID-19 pandemic. She is a high energy and compassionate medical professional with strong dedication to increasing the efficiency of patient care delivery at various levels of healthcare. Her strengths include that of a resourceful multimedia content creator, having the ability to produce creative visuals applicable to a broad range of health education and brand awareness projects. Her tenure at the Kingston and St. Andrew Health Department saw her providing digital solutions for her parish's COVID-19 response, including automated case reports and quarantine releases, among others, since providing geospatial solutions. And after learning the platform in a matter of weeks, her goal is now to achieve maximal efficiency of workflows within the health sector so as to reduce the workload on our hardworking healthcare providers and provide the quality care on the that our population deserves. She's a lover of languages, including French, but especially Jamaican Creole. She's also an avid do-it-yourself carpenter, plumber, tiler, and most importantly, a dog lover. So, this is where we're going to be getting started with ministry with Dr. Hayden's presentation, co-presented by Mr. Hector Burrowes. So Dr. Hayden, Mr. Burrowes, handing over to you guys. Danique, are you hearing me?
Okay, you should be seeing my screen now. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll just go ahead and start the presentation. So good afternoon. As was previously said, I am Dr. Hayden and I'll be presenting alongside Mr. Hector Burrowes. And we will be presenting on the Ministry of Health and Wellness's use of the Health GIS platform found in Arcgis.
1 second.
Online.
Could you put it in presentation mode, if possible?
It's in presentation mode. You're not seeing that?
Oh, no, we're seeing the Microsoft PowerPoint window.
All right.
Try sharing the other screen.
All right. Let me see. Oh, the entire screen? Okay, let me share the entire screen.
You could just share the application.
Well, that's what I was doing previously, but it seems to not be sharing it in presenter mode.
Okay, in that case, just share, do what works.
All right. So you're seeing the entire screen now, right? You're seeing the entire presentation now, right?
No, we're not seeing the entire presentation at all. We're not seeing it at all. Okay, it's okay. You can go back to the previous one. We will still get the message, I'm sure.
All right. Let me see. I think I have, because yesterday it was actually showing the entire presentation. So I think I can pull that up via Google Drive. Maybe I'm having a problem with the PowerPoint itself. Present. All right. Let me know if you're seeing the whole screen now.
Give me a second. Let's see. No, still not seeing it. You can go back to what you were doing previously.
All right, let me do
share.
that. Let me do that. All right, I guess this is as big as you'll be seeing it.
Yes, we can see it now.
All right. All right, so I'll still go ahead and see if I can do it in the presenter view. It's showing very big on my screen, so I'm not sure what's happening. But
yeah,
I can go ahead
probably.
now, right?
Yes, you can go ahead.
All right, awesome. So we will just be highlighting some of the tools that we have utilized in the Ministry of Health using Arcgis as the platform for those tools. Those are namely the elderly/disabled shut-in vaccination request tool, the hospital census, the health facility status, the Class 1 notification, and the Class 1 notification. So those that have been in Arcgis online, and Mr. Burrowes will be presenting on COVID-19 mapping as well as a few challenges and solutions that we propose. So our elderly/disabled shut-in vaccination request tool was recently launched by the Ministry of Health and Wellness about a month ago, and it enhances the ministry's ability to conduct vaccination of elderly or disabled shut-ins who would not have been able.
Your slides aren't moving.
Really? Okay,
yes.
all right.
Okay, now they're moving.
All right, let me just leave it in this format. Right. So the elderly/disabled shut-in vaccination request tool would provide the ministry with the spatial distribution of individuals who would be requesting vaccination via home visits. In addition to that, the intention was to reduce the burden of reporting to the ministry regarding the list of these individuals, as well as to provide real-time data analysis and progress analysis on the efforts regarding the home visits. So on the back end, we established an editing dashboard to be used by the Ministry of Health and Wellness's staff. So once the form that was previously shown would be filled out, then the information would automatically feed to the dashboard. And at that point, the staff would be able to change the status of individuals from not vaccinated to vaccinated, or not contacted to contacted. And then at the level of the parish, regional, and national administrative offices, the progress would be seen in real time. And we also utilize the ArcGIS experience to create one link to two dashboards, that being the mobile dashboard and the desktop dashboard, as you're able to visualize here. So we see where the public would input the information, and then the parish would conduct home visits and update the dashboard, and then this information would then be viewed by the regional and ministry administrative levels. We also have our hospital census tool, which allows us to monitor bed occupancy in the various hospitals across the country, and those bed occupancies would be COVID and non-COVID beds, so that decisions can be made in a quick manner and with more ease than it is now. Well, than it was previously. So we see the form that would be filled out by the personnel at the facility, and of course the dashboard that would be utilized to visualize the bed occupancy as well as the trends over time. We also have the health facility status form for disaster management that we see here. And again, this would be filled out by the facility staff and allow the ministry to monitor the status of hospitals and health centers before, during, and after a disaster. And like the hospital census, this is also a form that can be used both offline and online, because we know that sometimes internet connectivity is an issue, especially in the more rural areas. And of course, it also gives us a more detailed picture of exactly what's going on the ground, rather than having the communication come through the different channels, such as from the facility to the parish, to the region, to the ministry. It goes straight to the dashboard, which is accessed by all the different levels of administration. And the information that can be visualized would include images of any damages and the details of the damages. And of course, reporting, the reporting aspect of Survey 123 is a critical aspect because a great deal of time is spent on generating reports within the Ministry of Health. And the fact that persons are able to go onto Survey 123 and essentially generate a report with the click of a button is just amazing. So we have summary reports as well as individual reports that can be generated by different individuals. We also have our Class 1 notification, which is still under development by Professor Hugh Semple, and it allows notification of Class 1 diseases by healthcare workers and is intended to replace the current paper form. And this, of course, is very important because it allows us to conduct contact tracing. Well, it will allow us to conduct contact tracing and other efforts in a more efficient manner, in that if someone is positive for a particular disease, then the health department would not need to wait for hours or days, sometimes weeks, for that Class 1 paper form to reach the health department for them to then get that information for that individual. It's essentially uploaded in real time as soon as that particular person or that patient makes contact with the healthcare worker and that form is completed. Then the health department has access to that information, and also, more importantly, has access to the spatial distribution so that, especially with infectious diseases, they can be curtailed before it spreads too far. I've always said that a critical step in the launch of any health GIS tool is always the the implementation. I've always said that the development part is the easy part, but the implementation part is the difficult part, because you'll be introducing something new to your audience, and with change comes resistance. That's almost inevitable. But I think that we have managed to create a suite of introductory tools via Arcgis Hub, which is pretty much a platform that allows us to have our website within Arcgis. And so we have a health informatics website, which allows persons to book training sessions, view user guides, which is a written documentation of step-by-step instructions on using the tool, and a series of video tutorials. And this is created for each of the tools that we launch. And of course, in the future, we see ourselves creating more tools for the health sector, and these would include a digital internship application rather than the paper-based one that is currently, as well as a COVID-19 case management tool, which allows us to monitor the bed occupancy in critical areas of the hospitals, namely maternity, nursery, OT, and A&E, as well as ventilator occupancy. Right, so I'll now hand over to Mr. Burrowes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Burrowes,
for
can you
that.
hear? Okay,
Yes,
there you go.
yes. Thank you for that, Dr. Hayden. So I'll just be going through some of the work that has been done during the COVID-19 epidemic. So the first slide that I will go through is just showing you the workflow that takes place in terms of getting the information from the field to being mapped and then for dissemination. And as Dr. Hayden said, if we can get a lot of the information done in the field, then it would go a far way in terms of cutting the time that we do our analysis, which leads to quicker interventions. So the workflow, the information comes from the field to the lab, and then once it comes to the surveillance unit will disseminate that information to the different areas, and then we would do our geocoding in order to spatially analyze the data. And this is where a lot of the time is consumed because of the inconsistencies in the addressing information that is in the database. And then, of course, after that process is completed, then we will disseminate it to the different stakeholders. And the next slide basically shows you the a chart that is done on a daily basis, and the graphs that you see are basically representing the case count by week. So you can basically look at this chart, see which parishes have the highest numbers, but also you could look at when there were peaks throughout the parishes. Next one map here would show you basically just the count of cases by parish on a daily basis. The first one is the cumulative map, while the second one would basically show you the active cases that would precede the date that is on the map. And the map that follows that basically shows you rates. As you know, in terms of healthcare, we like to represent our information in terms of rates because this helps to normalize the data set so that you can basically go into the areas of greatest concern. And if you look at the rates map and the previous count map, you'll notice that there is a difference in terms of which parish would come out on top. The next map, deaths, this is very important in terms of us trying to see how best we can control this by the different strategies that we are using, in point the vaccination, but we also look at the deaths on a daily basis and also the rates by parishes. Again, the next map is just showing you the same information in terms of the deaths, but it is showing you the overall and compared to 2021. So we'll separate it by year to look at what is happening each year. Okay, next we would look at the cases in terms of parish, in terms of communities, because it's best if we can drill down as far as we can in terms of doing our analysis. And the community level affords us this opportunity. And the next map, it's basically showing you the cases as they would basically move over time. It's like a time series analysis because it's all looking at the overall cases, but you want to see what is happening at a given point in time. All right. Oh, it's not going. We could move on to the next. All right. This map is basically showing you it's a geographical spread map, and it's looking at the number of communities that are affected by COVID-19. And this map is done twice a week. So we basically look at the parishes that have the communities that are affected mostly by COVID-19. Right. Vaccination is also a map that vaccination coverage is also a map that we produce. And as you can see from this, we're not doing so well in terms of vaccination coverage, where you find that by parish, it is consistent, consistently high in terms of unvaccinated individuals. The next map looks at quarantine areas, and we would work in tandem with the JDF in terms of this, where we would share our case information, and then once they get that and look at where the clusters are, they would define areas to be quarantined, and then that information would be shared back with us. The next map, in terms of zeroing in on areas. I mean, if you are doing the general map and you see where a particular area needs intervention, what we would do is pull out information for that area. For this map, we're looking at downtown Kingston, and then we would look at the trend over time until that area comes under some semblance of control. All right, the 3 or 4 preceding maps we can skip through quickly, but they are basically showing you different indicators that we would use. So the first one is crowding, the second one population density, the other one is looking at the vulnerable institutions, and the last one is looking at the poverty level. And what we did, we aggregated this information with other indicators along with the COVID-19 cases to create a social vulnerability index, and which will be on the next map, which is basically showing you the communities that have the greatest need once you have done that calculation by correlating all the different indicators. So we created a composite or social vulnerability index for all the communities across Jamaica. All right, the next map is just an overlay showing you where the greatest areas of needs are and where they overlaid by the vulnerable institutions such as the hospitals, infirmaries, and prisons, nursing homes. The next map, it's showing you the punctuality in terms of reports being shared with the ministry. So this goes to show you that there's a wide area that we are using GIS for, not just directly in terms of disease mapping, but there are a lot of areas that we would want to implement it. And Dr. Hayden's presentation spoke a lot about some of those areas. In terms of the challenges, there are quite a few at the ministry. Health GIS, it's currently not institutionalized, and we all know what it is to be not institutionalized in terms of a government post or any workplace. You're not able to get a lot of the resources that you would want. So that is a major challenge. Limited human resources. It's just recently that we have been getting a few more GIS officers on board, but for most of the year it was predominantly 1 or 2 persons. Challenge in terms of maximizing on the geospatial tools that we are currently have access to. In terms of the limited number of accounts that we would get, that is also an issue because we would want to have as much as possible so that a lot of the data capture can be done in the field by not just public but also private practitioners, and also maintaining the enterprise server. That might be a bit of a challenge if you don't have the staff complement on board. Next map, sorry, the next slide. Now, in terms of the solutions, currently the ministry is trying to get GIS institutionalized, and they're advanced in terms of that. There's a proposal for around 7 persons within a unit, 6 being GIS officers. And key to this, which would help to negate some of the challenges that we spoke of earlier, would be the GIS infrastructure officer in terms of helping to manage the whole process and especially managing the server. MOH has also recently recruited several consultants on an international project, and they are actually at the ministry helping to develop different tools, manuals, and you saw one of the officers' names earlier, Dr. Hugh Semple. Not all are GIS, some are IT based, but as you know, everybody have to work together in order to have a seamless system that everyone can use. Once we have the full complement of officers on board, then continuous training and development would help to negate some of the issues that we spoke about earlier in terms of the challenges and maximizing on using the enterprise tools. We're also looking at the class 1 form where you would use a free account where persons would enter the information from the field, but then you would have a verified notifier in terms of the database, so that not anybody can just come and enter the information and you're not aware of who it is. Also, we are looking at using the sites as an access point, and in this case, you would not have individual persons having their accounts, but the account would be based on the site, and then at the end, that person, whoever enters the information, then they would input their information so that you can, at the end of them creating the form and also inputting the information for the class 1 form, so that you will be able to know who that person is and you can refer back to them. And finally, well, we spoke of the IT infrastructure officer earlier, but whatever challenges we have in terms of utilizing or maximizing on the enterprise system, if we can't do it, the expertise is within Ireland that we can actually access, and so we can outsource some of what we need to do. So in closing, I would just like to thank you all for giving us a listening ear. We are not at the point that we want to be, but we will get there eventually. And so once the staff complement comes on board and all of the different procedures and protocols are put in place, and some of the tools that are currently being developed by the different consultants are put in place, I think we should be in a good position to probably not fully maximize or utilize, but we would be utilizing enough of the software or the enterprise system in our daily activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hayden, Mr. Burrowes, for that enlightening presentation. Considering that we've all been living through these last 2 years as a kind of weird fever dream, it's good to know that there's actual work being done on using GIS to actually tackle the pandemic. Speaking of which, we actually have a question here. That's
I see where it has, because we basically create daily maps of the information that comes through the surveillance system. And whenever we see where you have clusters, then that information is shared. And as I mentioned earlier, that is how some of the quarantine areas were defined. So it has assisted, and I mean it is disseminated also to the parishes. So the parishes have their own map that is shared to them on a daily basis, and they use that information to help them in terms of their intervention strategies. So it has helped us at the ministry greatly. And also one of the maps that I showed in terms of the vulnerability index, where you look at the communities that are most affected by using different indicators. I mean, though that information has also helped us to zero in on areas of greatest concern. Thank you.
all right. Thank you again for that answer. That's actually very, very good to know. I really hope that you do get some staff down there soon, because one person to do all of this work, well, between you and Dr. Hayden, sounds like like an uphill battle. But I'm sure that you guys will pull through.
Well, we have been.
Okay. All right. Thank you again for your presentation. I'm pretty sure that our viewers were very enlightened and informed by your presentation and your subsequent answers. So moving right along, we actually got back Miss Williams to see if she can finish her present, and she would like to just wrap up her, in quick summary, wrap up her presentation. So I am going to be handing over to her, and she can then address the questions that were posted for the seminar. So Miss Williams, handing over to you now. Mm.
You're hearing me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you or your presentation. Okay, there you go.
Okay, I'm not sure where I got cut off.
You got cut off right at
sure.
the point where you're discussing land value, and upgrading from there. But in the interest of time, if a quick summary or a quick run through would also well.
Okay, yeah, I was almost finished anyways. So yeah, I was saying how we can use the information, and the land parcel information will be important in upgrading. And again, you can identify marginal lands so that you can decide when to actually move these persons out of these marginal lands where they're exposed to certain hazards, right? For example, close to gullies. And then, of course, with all this information, we can create a slum geodatabase. We can conduct our spatial analysis to make decisions, to create policy to better and more effectively manage slum settlements. And of course, if we should implement this in other areas meaning other urban centers, other countries, other developing countries, consider other Caribbean countries, we can then identify certain slum patterns and then make decisions, informed decisions. And if you want more details on this research, it was actually published, and you can find it in the journal, the peer-reviewed journal, IEE, Journal of Selected Topics, if you need to read in more detail. But what I want to leave you with is that using machine learning, using object-based image analysis, we're able to capture the diversity of slum settlements in this study area by applying a realistic human interpretation of slum settlements. And we have, because of the context that we've implemented, we've created a map that is more cost effective, where security is ensured, and of course implementing the land boundary as a boundary of our slum settlements. We have useful information that can facilitate slum upgrading in terms of your policy framework, economic considerations, and so forth, by providing slum statistics, slum geodatabase, creating slum patterns, and understanding the parcels of land that these slum settlements are occupying. And that's where I'll end it.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Don't leave just yet. We have a few questions for you, actually. We actually have a few questions, but in the interest of time, we only can ask one simple one and one in-depth one. The simple one was from Miss... The simple one was from Miss Rachel Channel, and she's asking, what kind of technology did you use in mapping the slums? You want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So I used a software called eCognition, as the name suggests, cognition. So the software allows you to basically create rule sets to train your image to say, as I said before, what is a slum, what it looks like, what are the characteristics. And as humans, when we were babies, we had to have somebody teach us certain things, and then we could apply it, solve problems. So it's the same concept with software. Okay,
wow. That actually, and then you did the post-processing in Arcgis as well, right?
For where I created the maps, the final maps, the geodatabase and so forth, yes, that's in ArcMap. So
where did you source your images from?
Okay, so these images, when I was in Hong Kong, I was an intern at a company, a geomatics company, and so they gave me these images to do the analysis.
Okay, that's actually quite interesting. The following question now states, in your research, have you been able to identify patterns of slums or informal settlements in terms of development over time? And what were some of the patterns that you encountered?
Oh, so I think that question probably came in before I finalized the research. So because we only did, as I said, kilometer square sites, there's only limited information in terms of the patterns that were created, right? And so that is why it is important to apply to larger areas so we can have a good understanding of these patterns. But for the simple 3 kilometer square site that I used, we found that most of these slums are along gully banks, which we know, but now we have spatial information for it. We found that these parcels of land, for instance, here, they are, there's a large amount that is unregistered lands. There's some also from the patterns, we can see that there's a good amount of settlements that are on marginal lands that are hazardous, lands that if any flooding should take place, then these persons will be negatively affected. So these are the patterns that you can get from the mapping of the slums, but of course, again, we'd have to extend this research to a wider area so that we can appropriately and definitely have more information.
All right, last question, and this one is from me. You guys started discussing any of this. You started discussing any of this with continuation, with like power, like the different government entities or such. to probably get some
Okay, so
funding?
okay, so I did send the research once it was published to the squatter management unit. They didn't respond, so I'm not sure. That is why it was important for me to present it today, because I wanted to get, I know, the ear of persons to just to know that the technology exists.
Well, we're glad that you managed to use the 9th Technical GIS Seminar as that platform. But I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that you've actually sparked the interest of many a student who are actually watching this right now to probably.
Okay.
And so we'll let us know if you get any calls regarding this.
Okay, I will.
But
I will.
okay, so delightfully, that was Miss Trecia Williams finishing up her presentation. Thankfully, we managed to get her back. So moving right along, we're actually be going into our next. We're actually be going into our next presenter. Our next presenter is actually Miss Carol Fisher. Yeah. Okay, so as I said, our next presenter is Miss Carol Fisher. Miss Fisher is the lead hydrographer and partner in the company T-Carta Caribe. So let me read off her profile for you real quick because it is impressive. So Miss Carol Fisher is partner in T-Carta Caribe and serves as program manager and lead hydrographer for the Kingston office. Born and raised in Jamaica, she holds a degree in land surveying GIS and is a certified hydrographer with over 19 years experience of extensive working experience on hydrographic programs in Jamaica. Carl is passionate about using technology to better manage and conserve our marine environment and is currently focused on bringing awareness to satellite-derived bathymetry, or SDB, to the Jamaica and the Caribbean region. Not to mention, she's also a delightful conversationalist and hopefully, well, definitely, as she goes through her presentation today, we hope to be learning quite a bit more from Miss Fisher. So, Miss Fisher, handing over to you now.
Okay, Tariq, just let me know if you're able to see my presentation as well as if you are able to hear and see me.
Okay, we can definitely see you. We can definitely see you. However, I'm not seeing your presentation.
Okay, let me just try again. Okay, so I'm trying to get it up. I'm selecting the presentation icon, however, nothing so far.
If possible, would you want us to share the presentation from our end?
If you are able to, yes, that would be good.
Okay, give me a second. Let me bring it up. Okay, Carl, you should be seeing it now. Let me know. Can you see my screen? Are you seeing the presentation, Carl? It seems like we have lost Miss Fisher as well. All right then. While we try to get Miss Fisher figured out, I think it would be best for us to move on to the next presenter, which would actually be our last presenter for the day, which would essentially be the dynamic duo from the Urban Development Corporation, which would be the Urban Development Corporation. Now, the dynamic duo being Mr. Bryan Austin and Mr. Denodain Gardner. Wait, we actually have confirmation of Carl. Carl is back. Okay, so I guess we can go back to the normal running order. Carol, can you hear us? Your microphone is muted, so we can't hear you.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, excellent.
Would you like me to share back my screen?
Yes,
Or-
that would be good.
Okay. Are you able to see?
Yes, I'm seeing what you have on, Terry.
Okay, so let me know when you require me to change the screen or change the slide.
Okay, will do. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Definitely, we're experiencing Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. But in spite of all of those things, we are still moving on. And it is really a tremendous privilege for me to be here to present to you. And let me congratulate the ministry, LICJ and NSDMB on the hard work that they've been putting in to make Geography Awareness Week and GIS Day 2021 a success. Okay, so my name is Carol Fisher and I'm the program manager for T-Carta Caribe. And in keeping with the theme of geospatial technology, navigating the new norm, I'll be presenting on emerging technologies in hydrography, case study of Bowdoin Harbour. Now, in the midst of the pandemic, and this is in 2020, we recognize that not a lot of hydrographic survey was taking place. And so TCarta approached National Land Agency to actually do a joint project to feature SDB and to actually present the data to NLA so that they could do the survey with this added data. And so this is what this presentation is about. So Tariq, you can move to the next slide. Okay, so my presentation outline, I'll look at who T-Carta is, introduction of satellite-derived bathymetry, SDB, T-Carta's proprietary software, Trident. Then we'll jump into the midst of things, looking at the case study of Bowdoin, the multiple approaches that we had. First approach was the SDB of Bowdoin, SBL of Bowdoin, the Sonar survey conducted by NLA of Bowdoin, and then we're going to look at a data amalgamation of all three approaches and the benefits of the multi-approach, and then I will conclude. Next, please. So who is T-Carta? Now, T-Carta is a satellite hydrospatial company established in 2019 in Kingston, Jamaica. We are a subsidiary of T-Carta Marine Denver, which was established in 2014. And T-Carta specializes in the marine domain. So we specialize in satellite-derived bathymetry. We specialize in water quality monitoring, coastal classification, sargassum tracking, and as well coastal erosion modeling. And our core capabilities includes remote sensing, GIS, hydrographic services, and geospatial software and web service development. I want to focus really on our recent development that we have been really pushing technology and research, because we're leveraging AI technology using ISAT2 data to create a global satellite-derived bathymetry product. And you can, of course, visit those resources as you see Ocean News and Sea Technology. Now, I want us to zone in on the Caribbean, because in the Caribbean, we have been using our software project Trident to we actually produce a large SDB project in the Lucan Peninsula with 130 square kilometers of 10-meter SDB being produced from 500 images and 6 million ISAT2 points. Quite a big data set to handle, but we were able to successfully accomplish that. Next. Okay, so we're going to jump in the deep end, for want of a better word. Now, what is satellite-derived bathymetry? Satellite-derived bathymetry, simply put, is relating the surface reflectance of shallow coastal waters to the depth of the water column. So you're able basically to derive depths from your satellite imagery. And T-Carta has developed novel approaches to SDB by integrating multiple methods, sensors, and the utilization of machine learning to provide scalable approaches to surveying broad geographic areas. And it really encompasses 5 steps. You have the imagery collection, your image pre-processing, where you have your atmospheric correction being done here, your landmassing and deglinting. Then you have your bathymetric creation using 3 different methods, your exponential decay, your random forest, and linear regression. Then you have your post-processing, where you're able to smooth your data as well as point cloud editing to remove outliers that would make the data, the uncertainty level increase. So we remove those outlier depths. And then we have your final QA/QC process, where we actually use our ISAT2 data to validate the data and assign an uncertainty level of the data. So next. So I spoke about Project Trident. So T-Carta Caribe is heavily, apart from the commercial aspect, we're heavily involved in research and, as I said, pushing technology. So we were able, with a grant from the National Science Foundation in US, to bring about looking at the automation of satellite-derived bathymetry, and the result is our Trident tool, which is our proprietary software. And this software is actually housed in the ArcPro platform in the geoprocessing section. You're able to add the Trident tool there, and it really encompasses 5 steps that really allow the users to systematically produce satellite-derived bathymetry. And the first step involves downloading and pre-processing of the multispectral imagery. Then you're able to collect ground truth points. And for our process, we use space-based laser points. That is what we get from the ISA-2 satellite. However, here you could use your multi-beam data tool ratio or your multispectral bathymetry tool random forest method. And from that method, you send that data now to the next step, which is QA and QC, where we have an accuracy assessment. And this is really a very robust process to ensure that our data falls within our error budget and that we're putting out good quality data for use. And then from that, you're able to export the SDB to a bathymetric attribute grid bag in your Arcgis platform. Next step, please. Next slide, please. So we're going to look at Bowdoin Harbour. And Bowdoin Harbour project, we're very excited about it. It's a joint project between TCarta and National Land Agency under a Memorandum of Understanding. And TCarta approached National Land Agency with the idea, and they were very much willing and excited to be a part of this collaborative effort. And TCarta provided NLA with a satellite bathymetry data set for reconnaissance and planning when they were ready to do their sonar survey of Bowdoin Harbour. And NLA in turn provided TCarta with the sonar data set for merging of both data sets to produce an improved final data set. And the final data set produced included more details of the shoals as well as a more seamless and detailed data set. Next slide. Just a little bit of detail of the data that we collected. Of course, the depth points were in your XYZ format. We used multispectral imagery from WorldView to satellite, or horizontal data mode WGS84, or 1 meter contour that we generated was in a shapefile format, and we actually used UKHO total tides, and these are predicted tides, and those were reduced to chart datum of lowest astronomical tide. And as I said before, the chart data and the ground data that were used in the ground truth aspect, and we had also included space-based laser points as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is an image of Bowdoin Harbour and the initial data set that was produced from satellite-derived bathymetry with your space-based laser points and your chart data points. So there I'm giving you a unique imagery identifier for the satellite that was used, and that was down sampled to 10 meter resolution. The imagery date is stated 21st of March, 2019. We actually were able to derive 7,015 depth pixels from SDB ranging from 0.5 of a meter to 17 meters. And all of this was remotely produced. And just to give you a little story, I am very new to using satellite-derived bathymetry. And the process, the workflow really allowed me to actually produce the initial data set with some amount of guidance remotely right at my desk. And so that was, for a hydrographer, that was pretty exciting. And so there was no safety of concern for your team members or your own safety, or even for equipment, because you're not in the marine domain. There's no worry about your boat, and there's no carbon footprint. So it does lend itself to a more eco-friendly and a more efficient way of doing things. Next. So from that SDB of Bowdoin Harbour, we were able to produce two other derived data sets, and that's the no-go area and the shoal points. So the no-go area is in red, and the no-go area really serves to inform the survey team when they go out where they need to exercise extreme caution or where they don't need to go, so that there is really safety of lives and equipment when they're executing that survey. And we're also able to generate shoal points, and those shoal points would be needed for the team to investigate where you have shoal areas popping up in deeper areas. And so those shoal points were also generated for investigation of the survey team. Next. So I spoke about ISAT-2, and ISAT-2 really is a space-based laser bathymetry method that TCarta, through the funding from NSF, were able to improve on to derive depths. And initially, let me just back up, it's NASA's Ice Cloud and Land Elevation Satellite 2, ISAT. And initially, as the name suggests, it was to be used for ice, clouds, and land elevation, not for the marine domain. But we were able, through that research, to be able to derive depths, and that's really a big thing. And the satellite itself, as you see in the imagery, it emits green laser pulse very rapidly, and so it's able to cover a wide area, and so that's pretty exciting. And it has a high accuracy of 95% compared with LiDAR survey. And then we're able to, because we have this wider database of depth points around the world, we're able to use these depth points for calibration and validation of SDB algorithms. Next. So zooming in on Bowdoin Harbour, we use 2,293 independently derived space-based laser bathymetry SBL points were produced in the Bowdoin area, and those points range in depth from 0.24 to 26 meter deep, and these points were used to calibrate and validate the SDB depths that were produced in Bowdoin Harbour. And the entire coastal area of Jamaica, as seen here, has approximately 1,220,000 SBL points that can be used for validation of survey data, in terms of for your sonar survey as well as your SDB survey. Next. Okay, so let's zoom in on the sonar hydrographic survey. Now, the sonar hydrographic survey is actually executed using an echo sounder and a transducer on a boat in navigable water. And what it does is that it propagates sound waves to the seafloor, and it's able to basically map the profile of your seafloor and give you a depth profile of the seafloor. And it's, as I said, it's usually mounted on a vessel. And so, of course, because you're in the marine domain, the aspect of safety is always very important when you're executing a hydrographic survey. And so sonar surveys tend to be what I would consider, since I was working in that area for a while, a high risk area. And it's pretty labor intensive. If you look at the picture on the bottom right, you will see the NLA hydrographic survey team. Quite a few of my colleagues that I know were on that survey, and it's a big team really for a small area, but it was done in conjunction with JDF, who provided the vessel for navigation. And of course, there was also a team on land to observe your tides. And so hydrographic sonar survey is very intense, and it also lends itself to long hours of work. And so this is just an introduction to that. Next slide. So let's look at more detail of NLA sonar survey. So these are the actual depth pixels that were observed using the multi-beam, not multi-beam, I think, yes, it was single beam that was used in this survey. And approximately 171 lines perpendicular to depth contours were utilized in that survey, and they had a depth range of 0.4 to 14 meters, and those depths were reduced actually to mean low water, and which we later converted to LAT when we were merging both data sets. And the sounding days were actually 13 days. So compare the 13 days sonar survey to about 2 to 3 of the SDB survey. You see the reduction already in time that SDB could be used for, as well as the reduction in cost. Next slide.
not to cut you too much, but we have limited time, so
Sure.
would it be possible? Okay, thank you.
So this is a merging of all three data sets to produce the final data set, which on the right will be the infilling of gaps and a more seamless data set, because now you would be removing all your data gaps that existed in the Sonar survey. Next. Next slide. Tariq, next.
Yeah, I'm changing the slides. I guess they're not going live.
Okay.
Hold on, give me a second.
It says live now.
Can you see it now?
No, I'm not seeing it. I think you can go to the final slide that says conclusion.
Okay, I'm having some trouble on my end.
All right,
Publish
so what I'll do,
live.
what I'll do then, I'll just speak to the conclusion that we found.
Okay.
And so what we concluded was that in this pandemic, there is no one particular way to do things. You can use your present technology with emerging technology to get more efficiency in what you want to achieve. And this project is a testimony really of that, using the SDB with the NLA data to produce a more robust data set. And definitely with the amount of waters that Jamaica has to survey, we are really encouraging the use of satellite derived bathymetry to monitor the environment, so that we can also reduce the number of sounding days that the team has to spend on the waters, as well as reduce the cost that is involved in our hydrographic program. And so definitely the whole pandemic lends itself to collaboration and merging technologies, so that we can better improve the monitoring and conservation of our marine environment. And I think those are just some resources there that you can look at when you have time. The story map of Bowdoin Harbour, and I'm on LinkedIn, and our website is www.tcartacaribe.com. And I think that I've come to the end of the presentation, and I thank you for your patience and your time in spite of the challenges that we had technically. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Don't go away just yet.
Sure.
Sorry that we had to. Sorry for the difficulties close to the end, right as you were getting into the meat of the matter as well, because I'm pretty sure most of the GIS professionals in this group have a lot of questions for you, and they have been coming in, trust me. Okay. So one of the first questions that we have is, where did you source Worldview 2 satellite data? And the second question being, do you think this technology could be applied to finding mosquito breeding sites from a health perspective?
Those are very interesting questions, especially the mosquito. But the Worldview 2 satellites, there we have a arrangement with the satellite imagery providers. So we are able to access those imageries, the freely available images, as well as the paid images, which would be a 2-meter resolution. So you have the 10-meter resolution, you have free images available sent from Sentinel-2, but for the 2-meter resolution, which is more accurate, those are actually paid products. And we have working contract with a few satellite imagery providers. In terms of the mosquito breeding, I would have to get some technical assistance to answer that one. I'm not sure if we're able to do that. Remember, we're talking about space here, so if not, unless that, what you call that collection of mosquitoes now. Let me see, my primary school thing is coming back. I don't remember what you call a collection of mosquitoes, but that would have to be a pretty thick collection of mosquitoes for it to be picked up by satellite. But I'm sure if it's a pretty thick collection, it can be done, really.
I think they probably mean using it to identify breeding sites in terms of water bodies. Would SDB or using satellite imagery be a viable way to identify water bodies across any given section of land?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question, but satellite imagery is able to pick up water bodies right across the globe. If the person is asking in terms of the quality of the water, if it is that there is a relationship between the quality of the water and mosquito breeding, then we're able to ascertain the quality of the water from satellite imagery and say this is a site that is prone for mosquito breeding. Definitely, but definitely satellite imagery can pick up water bodies across the globe. You're able to pick up your rivers, your lakes, your oceans, definitely, and it can pick up water bodies.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I'm pretty sure T-Carta may be getting a few more calls after this as well, especially for that paid, subscription to the satellite imagery. But that's another story for another day. Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Thank you, Ms. Fisher, for coming along. Thank you for presenting. And if we have any other questions, we will be forwarding them to you.
Please do.
So moving right along, we're into the final presentation for today, which would be the dynamic duo from the Urban Development Corporation. They have been they have been one of the core backers or one of the more consistent presenters in our technical services, and they're always doing something over there. So let me introduce you to the presentation team. So the presentation team consists of Mr. Bryan Austin and Mr. Denodain Gardner. Now, Mr. Bryan Austin is the Director of Geographic Information Systems at the UDC. One of Jamaica's leading geospatial pros, Bryan has a master's degree in Geographic Information Systems for urban applications from the University of Twente in the Netherlands, and a Bachelor of Science degree, honorable in Urban and Regional Planning and Environmental Resource Development from the University of Technology, Jamaica. He is also certified in project management by the Project Management Institute, a pioneer in applying GIS to urban management. Bryan has also has extensive experience in development planning, geodesign for highway infrastructure planning, and the bauxite alumina industry as well. He has significant experience as a GIS consultant, supporting many government of Jamaica initiatives, such as the notable Millennium Project, Highway 2000. He takes his role in public service seriously and is a father of 2 girls who are his greatest achievement. Now, Mr. Denodain Gardner is their Senior Spatial Data Analyst at the UDC, an experienced spatial data analyst with a demonstrated history of working in the GIS and planning industry. Skilled in using Arcgis products, Python, JavaScript, HTML, and other database management, he's also very versed in urban planning and computer-aided design. He combines professional experience in IT with a bachelor's degree focused in urban and regional planning from the University of Technology, Jamaica. So as you can see, they're a very, very, very technical group, and I'm pretty sure that they have a lot of knowledge to drop on us today. So Mr. Austin, I'm handing over to you now. Okay, Ms. Austin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we've been plagued by Mr. Murphy all day, but this seems to be going fine so far. Knock on wood.
Yes. All right, guys. Happy GIS Day, everyone, and happy Geography Awareness Week when it comes as well. My name is Bryan Austin, and my co-presenter, of course, is Denodain Gardner. And I'm going to just present to you a business continuity framework. And Denodain is going to give you the sexy part, right? Which is the actual solutions, right? So without further ado, okay, so you know the team. Tell me something. When was your first time when you heard about the word coronavirus or COVID-19. You remember your first time? Well, for me, it was 2019, I think December or 2020, January, right? And we saw this map, and this map was introduced to the world. And we shared this map with our team at the UDC, with the executives. And at the time, we weren't sure what this was all about, you know, because at the time it was not a global pandemic. It was just what you would call it, a health situation that was impending per se, right? Now, for us, we kind of waited like the rest of the world did, and we now understand the dictation that COVID-19 has had on us, right? So come the 15th of March, that same year, 2020, we started to strategize. The Prime Minister also met on that day with his cabinet and with his team, did the presentation. The President of the United States then also met on that very same day. And we all realized that this is bigger than what we thought it was, right? Now, for our business continuity and recovery, what is business continuity and recovery, right? Business continuity and recovery essentially focuses on keeping business in operation during a disaster, or in this case, global pandemic, COVID-19, right? While the recovery component focuses on restoring the data and the IT infrastructure side of things, the disaster recovery part is really, for us, is really more so a focus on the data, having access to the data, right? And the data that we can use to build solutions, right? So we're going to be focusing on that. UDC does have an occupational health and administration, OSHA, right? And it's tied into our policies, and we are now moving into that direction, full speed in terms of digital transformation and valuing data as an asset, and valuing the GIS as well as an asset, as an indispensable asset, right? So we had this meeting, right, in the general manager's office, and I remember it was just a handful of us, and we were trying to get an understanding of what all this is all about, you know, and we realized that our facilities would have been impacted severely based on what was happening in China. There was already, you know, this lockdown taking place, and in the UK and so on. These were the earlier places that were devastated. And so we realized that we need to start securing our assets, right? And here you have a map of our, you know, most of our facilities, right? And this is spread across, and you will see these areas in red. These are the areas that are mostly affected based on the population in these areas. We find a greater spread of COVID-19. And we realized that we need to put into place measures to address this, right? And that was how we came up with this business continuity and recovery team. We have a recovery team, actually, a designated recovery team at the UDC. And on the ground, this is what it looks like for us navigating the new normal. All right, so we have our daily cleaning team. We have that here. We have the construction of Harmony Beach Park, which is now completed, by the way. And we decided that the work should go on. So we maintain that throughout the time. And that's actually a good thesis. If you guys were to ever study how we pull this off during the time, you guys could check us out for a thesis for that. And this is our deep cleaning team and our daily team together. Here we have our deep cleaning team. We have members also, because UDC is spread right across Jamaica, as the map showed earlier. So we have our team from ORCC, right? SADCO, as UDC is an umbrella organization. And we have a water company. This is in Runaway Bay Water Company. And so it's quite a large company, UDC, right? And now we're going to move into the framework that we consider as the business continuity and recovery framework, right? So the business continuity and recovery framework is built out on the Arcgis online hub, right? What you call online, right? So here's the thing now that you have to realize. When you have a disaster, right, the online component is critical because it's in the cloud. And so you may want to, whether it's a natural disaster caused by a natural hazard, or in the case of COVID, right, where persons are no longer able to use the system or access the system because of lack of staffing and other things. You would want to have the facility of a hub or an online service, right? So what we did, we utilized the Arcgis Online, and we developed within that the necessary support, right? From fundamental client groups, which are 5 fundamental client groups. First of all, we have the GIS unit professionals. Now the GIS unit professionals would create the maps and then share them with the Arcgis Hub across the corporation, right? So the corporation would then access it. Person from outside as well would access it, depending on which group you fall into. And this is primarily for data management and decision making, right? And analytics and visualization. So we would do the maps and then post and then put them into Arcgis Online. And then we would have our first set of consumers, which would have been the UDC employees and contractors, right? So for the staff members and the facility workers and so on, the contractors, they would facilitate staff check-in using their portal, right? Using a set of forms, right? And this would provide timely welfare status, right? And information to the staff, right? And this would also provide a means for training, right? Where we realign the workforce to ensure that we develop new skills that are going to be needed to chart this new way of doing business, or this new business normal, right? Moving from the old normal, right? Or the old. So in the third group now we have UDC exec and incident managers, right? So remember I mentioned about the recovery team, they would be among this. The leader for the recovery team would be a part of this with the UDC executives, and they would essentially have access to data, right? In the terms of to measure risk, to analyze, and to do analytics to see what are the future trends, right? And this would also facilitate the new policies they would be putting in place, such as a hybrid work environment, as well as an improved data policy, right? To support this. This would also generate reports and dashboards created by the GIS unit, right? They would access these in a timely manner across the corporation. And the fourth business area is the UDC estate and facility managers, who are required to be informed and provide access to similar GIS services to facilitate data collection and status report on the facilities across the island. And these reports would then be shared back with the executive and incident managers, right? So number 4 will be shared with 3. If you notice, there are 2 different colors. We do have actually all of this, you could say built out or existing, but not necessarily operationalized. Not all of them are operationalized, but we do have a demo that's going to show you the entire thing as if it was fully operationalized, all right? And the fourth group, right? The 5th group would be the internal customers, external customers and the public. So we have direct customers like our who uses our services, the UDC services, like who rent property from us, purchase property and so on. Or our water, we have a water company, so the water company has customers, and so we would directly be relating to them to tell them what they want to have updates on certain information. We would use that information to inform them and guide them along, right? For other business and for other services, right? So we have attractions and we have other facilities, right? And they would use this, and we would also use to inform the public, right? So, and this would be provided in pretty much near real time, and this would also generate reports. You would need to know how much are they interacting with this information. I think we're getting back some returns on that investment. All right, so that said, that pretty much winds up what we refer to as the framework. Now I'm going to hand over to Denodain, and Denodain is going to give you all of the niceties of what is the solutions that we've created, right? And some of these will be forms, some of these will be dashboards and so on, right? So Denodain, take it away, partner.
All right, thank you, Brian, and good afternoon to you all, ladies and gentlemen. I know the time, so I'll do my best to be dynamic and make this presentation as short and sexy as possible. So as I was so wonderfully introduced twice before, my name is Denodain Gardner, Senior Spatial Data Analyst at the Urban Development Corporation. And today the pleasure is mine to share with you a few applications created by the UDC GIS team to assist with our efforts in navigating the new normal and ensuring business continuity. No, Brian.
Denodain, we can't see your screen. If you're sharing
Yeah,
your presentation, we can't see
I
it.
started sharing as it.
Okay.
No, Brian spoke about the framework which drives UDC's business continuity efforts. And truth be told, we have had to get creative and implement strategies in new and interesting ways to ensure that our operations remain intact within what is now our new normal. So as Brian mentioned, two key areas of concern were our staff's well-being and the continued operation of our facilities. So the applications that I'll be showcasing today were created with the aim of enabling the corporation to do exactly that as part of its business continuity efforts. Let me go ahead and share this screen. Someone can confirm that my screen is seen.
You're good.
All right, thank you. All right, so now before I get started, I'm sure you can appreciate that the information contained in such applications may be of a sensitive nature and cannot be readily shared. So I would therefore like to start by offering a disclaimer that the data that you're about to see, and in fact, the applications themselves, as Brian alluded to, are fabricated for the purpose of this showcase. The video being played on my screen, I'll go ahead and start that now. Currently depicts the data being entered into the survey by a custom-made data randomizer. So any likeness in data that you may see throughout the duration of this presentation is purely coincidental. All right. Okay. All right. So now that I've protected myself from any possible lawsuits in that respect, we can begin. So I would like to start by showing you guys an application that was created using Arcgis Hub, the UDC COVID-19 data center. This was created to provide a medium through which those who are authorized to do so can gain access to data and analysis readily at the click of a button. All right. So as we move through this presentation, I'd like you to keep three phases in mind, actually. The first being staff welfare, second, facility management, and the third, business continuity, because that's what this is all about. All right. So as part of our efforts to ensure business continuity during the height of COVID, we had created this page to host stuff like our GIS services request form, where persons could come in, they could click that, and they would see or offerings here that they can utilize. I'm sure some of you guys have received this from Bryan when you have made your request. So we're collecting data on the back end on the type of requests that have been made so far and how soon they're being serviced while we are in a hybrid working arrangement. Also, this contains our application gallery. I won't be going through all of these today, but it has stuff that we had built out for our staff, including an essential services finder, that's pre the ENDS program, a business registration, UDC COVID-19 staff welfare form, and others. As I mentioned before, business continuity and recovery is the name of the game, and we have additional applications which move towards attaining that goal. This is actually one of the applications I'll be going through today. So I'll come back to that in a bit. Additionally, on this page, to keep our staff members abreast of what is happening, we had some social media plugins showing UDC's staff orders, notices, etc., as well as some posts from Ministry of Health and Wellness. You can see here that we recently had Harmony Beach Park on temporary closure. All right, so let's get right into the meat of the matter. The two sets of applications that I will be presenting to you today are the UDC COVID-19 management dashboard for the staff welfare aspect of it, as well as a facility management dashboard. So with this first dashboard, this dashboard seeks to provide rapid information at a glance as to the distribution of UDC staff across the island, as well as their general health and well-being. All right. We are currently working in a hybrid arrangement. At the height of COVID, it was more so everyone is working from home. But now we have switched to more of a hybrid arrangement where you have some people in office, some people at home. This dashboard also seeks to capture that, as you can see here, through the widgets that are here, the amount of persons that are on site, at home, and absent, which would be either sick, vacation, casual leave, or otherwise indisposed. Right? It shows you where UDC staff members live, total amount of staff that is here, the distribution by age, which is critical in identifying risk factors. It also shows you the percentage of staff that is feeling healthy and the staff that has been vaccinated so far. So this provides an at a glance update as to the general health of UDC staff, our readiness to move forward, and basically where we need to have action taken to ensure the continued well-being of our staff. Other things that this dashboard contains, it will show you generally the staff work arrangement, who is working from home, where these persons are. It will show you staff location clusters, so you can see at a glance where the majority of our staff are located. And it will also show us active cases by community so that you can identify which of your staff is in hazardous areas. Right? This can be filtered by several variables, including the parish that your staff resides in. So if you have your staff location, you can actually look and you can see that filtered by a parish, or you can filter it by the facility. So if you want to see the staff members for like Bluefields Beach, for instance, you can hit that and you see that the variables down here update as well to give you an overview of the general staff complement for that particular facility. All right, now onto the COVID-19 facility management dashboard, which is similar in design and serves a similar function, but with a greater focus and emphasis being placed on the facilities that we have. You can see the total number of facilities that are here, those which have disruptions to operating hours, and you can also see some staff data as well. You can filter to easily identify those facilities which are currently closed to the public, or those which are only catering to essential workers or security guards right now, so they don't currently accept staff in. As I mentioned before, you can also view staff information from this dashboard. Right. All right. So let's have a look at the inputs, the input mechanisms for these dashboards. So during the height of COVID, I think it was in March 2020, we had been tasked with developing these forms to collect data on UDC staff in terms of their general well-being and how they're coping with COVID as it is. All right. Let me zoom in a little bit more. And I'll just take you through this really quickly. So we have help hotlines here that you can reach out for the COVID teams. TR numbers to identify everyone, because anonymity was a great concern when doing this. So we decided to forego the use of names and use TRNs instead. The age groups, contact numbers, etc., etc. As I go through this, you realize that not all data that you see in this form was utilized in the dashboard, but we actually do utilize them in other interesting ways, such as reports and etc. that we, maps and reports that we generate using that data, all right, to enable our executives to make rapid decisions. So let's fill this out so I can show you exactly how it works. Zoom back to 50% and hit reset. And then I'm going to boot up my randomizer just to show you an example of how the user would interface with this application. So as the randomizer goes through and it enters the data set, there are some key things that in this process we look out for, right? So of note, this being a staff welfare form, we generally want to collect any pre-existing conditions that the employee might have, as well as whether or not they've taken the vaccine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So let me stop this. And once that has been submitted, what happens is that the submitter will actually get an email, which looks very much like this one, which thanks them for completing the survey, as well as providing a custom generated link to them so that should their situation change, I just mentioned vaccination. So if since filling out the last entry, they go back and they get vaccinated, they can actually come back here. They can click that link that was sent to them and they can go back and they can go ahead and they can adjust their status in any one of these variables. All right. And that's pretty much how we ensure that records are tracked for each staff member and that they are kept updated so far. So that's pretty much on the back end of how we actually go about collecting data from staff members and displaying them to the executives so they can make quick and rapid decisions to allow us to push forward with our business continuity measures. Bryan, I will hand over back to you for final words.
Thank you, Dano. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, so you've seen what we've had to offer, and we are now open for questions.
Okay, so I have not seen any questions posted as yet, but I have to say that I am very impressed with the work that has been going on in the UDC. You guys seem to be taking full use of a lot of the information. One thing that stood out to me actually was closer towards the end. I mean, I love the integration personally, but question, how did you get the data randomizer to interact separately with the web survey? And can you elaborate on some of the backend details as to how you do the management between ArcGIS and Hub?
Okay, so I guess I'll be taking that one. Let me start in order of the questions posed. So the data randomizer, I'll go ahead and share my screen again. Okay. So the data randomizer is just a custom built Python application that I made to actually go through the survey. So what it does is it identifies the location of each variable that you can select, and it randomizes it in a sensible fashion. So it's designed in such a way that if it says that somebody works at UDC head office, which is downtown Kingston, it doesn't set them to live in Manchester, which would be way over, even though we do have somebody from UDC HOC. But it's just a logical based application that I made just to use. As it relates to the Hub backend, most of these applications are posted in the Hub site as embedded links, and it just simply allows the user to go in and see them as an embed, and once they click it, they'll have access to the form itself. No, I probably shouldn't show that one since that's a live one, but that's pretty much how it works. It's built on simplicity and ease of use, because we have individuals who work at the corporation. We have over 1,000 employees, and those individuals are at varied levels of technological prowess. So we have to make it very easy to use, very easy to access. So
One more question.
fine, sure.
Oh, one more question. When you're tracking the different surveys, how did you manage to do that? Essentially, especially with the customized link for each individual survey.
Okay, so each survey has what is known as a global ID, right? That global ID, sorry, not survey, each entry, each submission has what is known as a global ID. That global ID is unique to that entry. So once you have that global ID, you can generate a link for that client, done using webhook services like Integromat. You can utilize Integromat as a webhook service, or you can utilize Microsoft Power Automate, or you can utilize other services that are out there. I'm not trying to sell any particular one. But once a submission is done, what it does is it allows for a response to be sent via mail or whatever other input or contact that you have, regardless of whether or not they have logged in. You can send an email to them and with that particular link, and they will be able to see it and click it, and it will bring them right back to their survey. I mean, if anyone wants a walkthrough on it, or if anyone wants a data randomizer, you can always contact myself or Brian, and we'll set you up with that.
Okay, with that said, I'll have to contact you definitely off the air because I want some more information on that one. You guys seem to be doing a whole lot of good work over there. I'm just really I really just wish I heard about a lot more of these things, but you guys are doing excellent work over there. Mr. Austin, Mr. Gardner, thank you again. We're running short on times. I wish we had more time to actually delve in because I know I would have a lot more technical questions to ask, and I know some other persons would have a lot more questions to ask as well. But for the interest of time, we're probably going to even have to just do a whole other session for that. But that's a discussion for another time. But thank you again to everyone who has there. Oh, there was one posted. There's one more posted. Okay, yes. So how readily did the various UDC personnel buy into and adapt using these various tools by facilitating completion to support the monitoring process? Was training conducted and in what areas? This has to be the last question because we're running short on time.
If I'm being completely honest, not really at all. So we went through about 3 to 4 variations of this survey before we got any substantial amount of answers. Because as I mentioned before, persons had concerns about anonymity, and back when that was during the height of COVID, when there was some amount, well, there was a negative image attached to those persons who were seen to have caught COVID. So no one wanted to be associated with that. No one wanted to be tracked. But eventually people realized that it was in the corporation's best interest that we do actually know about the health status of our employees. And they realized that this was not meant to track them or harm them, but rather it was an effort on the part of leadership to actually show that, we care about our employees, and where the situation is bad, we will assist.
Tarek, you're on mute.
That's okay. I was saying that sounds like the short version of an uphill battle, but I'm glad that eventually that there was a significant buy-in, and
Exactly.
hopefully something like that can be, expanded. Ministry of Health is on this with us, wink, wink. Probably should give them a call. But thank you again for your presentations. It was very informative, and I personally have learned a lot. And I'm going to hand over to Mr. Ranford Campbell so that we can finally wrap up and actually do the vote of thanks so we can start signing off. So, Mr. Campbell, handing over to you to do the vote of thanks.
Well, good evening, colleagues, and I want to say special thanks to everyone for their support in spite of our technical difficulties today. On behalf of the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, the Land Information Council of Jamaica, and the National Spatial Data Management Branch. Overall, the team, we wish to thank all our presenters. It was a very fruit-filling and exciting event, and the presentations, I'm sure there will be a lot of questions to all the persons who presented based on the geospatial technology. To our attendees and our organizers, of course, without you, we could not have this event. So all the persons on the different social media platform, we thank you. We just want to tell you thanks again because it was a big accomplishment, and we just want to invite you to tune into all the other events for our GIS Awareness Week. Of course, on Sunday, the 14th, we'll be having our annual Geography Awareness Week Thanksgiving service. And then on the 17th, we'll be having our 19th National GIS Day exposition. And of course, all this will be live, and I'm sure based on the social media, based on the LICJ website, and all of that, all those informations are out, plus emails have been sent to the different organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for your support, and we look forward for more exciting events of these, such as these, in terms of promoting, and we also want persons to be utilizing the cutting edge technology of geospatial and geographic information systems. So again, keep safe, and we wish you all a very good evening.